Unlike many of the other LDOE type games, a well-placed skill in Frostborn can easily change the outcome of a battle. New spells unlock as you level up and they generally get better, but they have long cooldowns and require skill to use. So higher level skills is not nearly as important as learning how to use the ones you have. So today I'm going to go through each skill, how to use them, and how to combine them with others to have better effects. At level 3 you get the Firebolt, which is a long range skill shot that does 15 damage if it hits the target. 15 damage may not seem like a whole lot, but you have to remember that it can be timed to hit them while you are also attacking them with something else. This allows you to create more burst damage, which is the key to overpowering healing effects. And then the cooldown on this spell is only 60 seconds, which is one of the fastest cooldowns of all the spells. At level 5 you unlock the Frostbolt, which is also a long range skill shot, but instead of doing a lot of damage, it slows your enemies by 30% for 3 seconds. If I've learned anything from MOBA games, slows should never be underestimated in PvP. I mentioned in my tips and tricks video for this game that this is a great skill to secure a kill or split up a team. One important note though on using skill shots is if you shoot straight at someone, it can easily be dodged. So I would suggest waiting until they're distracted or find a way to shoot at an angle. This is a harder shot to make, but it is also a more confusing shot to dodge. The cooldown on this spell is 90 seconds. At level 7 you unlock the Healing Wave, which heals yourself and every ally within a coned area. This is an amazing skill for farming in a non-PvP green zone and even the Sanctum of Odin, but it is not good for PvP because it requires a 2-second windup before using. This windup not only takes time that you cannot afford in a PvP battle, but it also makes it very difficult to hit your allies even in non-PvP situations unless they know that you are going to do it before you do it. Since the game does not have a voice chat system integrated yet, I would suggest getting on Discord or coming up with a pattern of farming so that your teammates know when to expect it. And then if they do end up running out of the area, you can just move a little bit to cancel using the spell. Also, it is important to note that the cooldown on this spell is very long at 200 seconds. Then at level 10, in addition to acquiring the ability to equip 2 spells at the same time, you unlock the Cone of Fire, which after a 2-second windup does 15 damage to every enemy within the coned area. Even though this skill has the potential to do more damage than any other skill in the game, I personally do not like it because in order to do that much damage, you would have to round up a lot of enemies and make sure they stay still long enough for you to hit them, which means that you'll probably take a lot of damage. The cooldown on this spell is 150 seconds. At level 13 you get your first Rune Spell. Rune Spells create an aura that supports your team. In this case, the Armor Rune gives +3 armor. Rune Spells are generally good for PvP because they establish an area where your team gets an advantage. This forces the other team to decide whether or not they want to fight in that area where they will have a disadvantage or whether they want to regroup to fight later. Since most teams are unorganized, this might cause some of those teammates to decide to run while the others stay, splitting them up and giving you an easy win. The cooldown on this spell is 85 seconds. Then at level 16 you unlock the Wolf Howl, which gives your teammates in that area +3 damage for 7 seconds. This spell is difficult to use, so I would not recommend using it in PvP unless your team really knows what they're doing. That being said, if you do use it well, it can allow you to do so much more damage. For example, if you buff 3 teammates equipped with Ash or Reaper staffs, you will cause them to do almost 70 extra damage in those 7 seconds. So it has a lot of potential, but it is hard to use well and has a very long cooldown of 200 seconds. At level 20 you unlock the Fire Strike, which does a quick 20 melee damage to your target. 20 damage is not a whole lot when fighting mobs, but this is one of the best spells if you want to do burst damage in PvP. The cooldown on this spell is only 85 seconds, so it should be ready when you need it. At level 24 you unlock the Shockwave, which after a 1.5 second delay does a 3-second stun to every enemy in the coned area of effect. This is a very useful spell for Odins because often opening a door causes several enemies to get aggroed at the same time. And then while it is harder to stun enemies in PvP because it's easy to dodge, it is still a great spell for zoning out an area because it forces your enemy to move away from that area in the middle of a battle. And if you do land a stun on one of them, it can be an instant game changer. However, it is important to note that 2 people cannot stun the same enemy back to back. The cooldown on this spell is 140 seconds. At level 28 you unlock the Stun Rune, which for 8 seconds stuns enemies and allies within that area for a half second of each second. This spell is good for Odins and PvP, and it is particularly helpful when you have a ranged weapon. But even with melee weapons, you can sometimes place yourself where they are getting stunned and you are not. Cooldown on this spell is 120 seconds. At level 32, you unlock the Tree of Life rune, which heals your allies 2 hit points every second for 8 seconds. In comparison to the healing wave, it is much easier to heal your entire team with this spell, and it is instant, so you can use it in a PvP setting. Furthermore, the cooldown on this spell is 160 seconds, which means on average it does the same amount of healing per minute as the healing wave. Then at level 36, you unlock the Magic Shield, which buffs yourself for 3 seconds with +5 armor, but also causes you to do 20% less damage. The first and most obvious use for this spell is for someone who is tanking for their team. Since this is most commonly done at Odin's with someone who has a sword and shield, the 20% reduction of damage isn't that big of a deal. I also found another great use for this spell, but I will not be revealing that until I release my video on how to farm copper in the red zones, which includes how to do it by yourself without getting killed by other players. The cooldown on this spell is only 60 seconds, so you get the chance to use it often. And then at level 40, you unlock the ability to summon the Spirit Bowmen, which is currently the highest level spell in the game. When you first get the Spirit Bowman, you will probably be disappointed that he only does 4 damage per shot, totaling at around 24 damage. But this is actually an amazing spell for 3 reasons. The first one is that the Spirit Bowman will actually tank damage for you while you are farming or at Odin's. This can easily add up to as much healing as you might get from one of the healing spells, making this one of the best player versus monster spells in the game. The second reason this spell is amazing is because it is 24 range damage that never misses your target, and then the third reason is because the spell only has a 40-second cooldown, allowing you to use it over and over again. So that's all the spells that are currently in the game, but one of the most important things to think about when using spells is choosing 2 of them that work well together. There are probably 100 ways of doing this, and I'm excited to hear what you guys have come up with, but I have come up with 5 different combinations to help you guys get started. The first combination is what I'm calling the Assassin. The Assassin is designed to do the maximum amount of burst damage in a PvP context, and it can be used in one-on-one or team settings. The Assassin is equipped with a Poison Bow and a Vran Axe with the Spirit Bowman and Fire Strike selected. When an Assassin engages an enemy, they immediately summon the Spirit Bowman and start shooting the Poison Bow. Those 2 combined will be doing 42 damage per second of normal damage, and then an additional 12 damage per second of poison damage, which ignores armor. So the Assassin is already doing a ton of damage, but if the enemy is tanky enough to make it to them, then the Assassin switches to the Vran Axe, does 1 hit, and then immediately applies the Fire Strike. With the combined effects of the Archer, poison damage, Vran Axe, and Fire Strike, the Assassin will be doing around 110 damage in just a little over 1 second, 12 of which ignores armor. So this should pretty much kill anyone, even if they have purple armor, but if they survive due to a sword and shield and armor buffs, 1 more hit with the Vran Axe will definitely finish them off. The second combination I'm just going to call the Cleric. This role is only effective with a team that works together, and it is going to be best utilized in PvP. In this role, when 2 teams clash, the Cleric puts up both the armor and Tree of Life runes. These runes work well together because they heal the team while simultaneously causing them to take less damage, so the healing counts for more. This is going to be effective in any team situation, but it is going to be the most effective when the enemy team has at least 1 player with melee weapon, because as I said earlier, it will force those players to choose whether or not to fight at a disadvantage or run away. The third combination is the Disruptor. When you and only 1 or 2 teammates are farming in the red zone, you have to be wary of getting ganked by an entire team. So I recommend having one of your teammates wear low level armor and have nothing really good on them to distract the enemies long enough for the other teammates to get away. In this situation, I recommend this player use the Ice Bolt and Stun Rune. Both of these skills have very strong crowd control, but they can also be used at a distance, which is important if you are wearing low level armor. When an enemy attacks one of your teammates that has nice equipment like a strong pickaxe or hatchet or something else valuable, run at them to try to get their attention like normal. If this doesn't work, use your Stun Rune to keep them from killing your friend. This usually pisses them off and they start targeting you instead, but on the rare occasion that they were getting close to killing your friend and they're still set on it, use the opportunity of them getting stunned to hit them with an Ice Bolt. This will allow your friend to get a full second of space between them, which will definitely make that enemy start targeting you. Then once your friends are safe, you can try to get away. If you had to use both your skills, then this will probably be impossible, but regardless, I recommend running past as many giants as you can in such a way that they will end up targeting or even getting a hit off on the person that's chasing you. Then after a little bit of this, when the person passes several enemies you've attracted, use your Frostbolt to slow them so that those enemies get a few more hits off on them. You still may end up getting killed, especially if they have teammates, but sometimes you get get lucky, and there was one time that the guy ended up dying and I was able to take his purple armor that he had obviously bought in the store. The fourth combination is what I'm calling the farmer. In this role, you just select both heal spells so that you can heal an average of 1 hit point every 5 seconds. This is a lot of healing and will allow a player to farm a non-PvP green zone without using any food, and would theoretically allow a team to farm a red zone without using food, but that is assuming that you don't get any fights with real players. And then the last combination is the team Flamethrower. This involves all the players in your family to select the Shockwave and Cone of Fire. Then as a team, you round up all the enemies in the green zone and then run in circles until they're all bunched up together. Once they're as close together as you can get them, run to your other 3 teammates who should be standing in the same place, with 2 of them creating a big cone with 2 shockwaves. If timed well, you will stun the entire group, and then the 4 of you can blast them with your cones of fire. You can then farm the zone, or if you're trying to level up your team quickly, you can travel to another green zone and use your other 2 teammates' shockwaves to do it again, since this is the fastest and cheapest way to level up. Well, that's it guys, hope that helps. If you can think of any combinations that I missed, please leave it in a comment below. Also, some of you have been asking if supporting me for only $1 a month on Patreon would even help me, and the answer is yes. In fact, if only 1% of my subscribers supported me for $1 a month, then I would end up $200 over my goal. So if that is something you want to do, that would be amazing, and you get extra perks. Alright guys, I'll see you next time.